If you could make your own show, would you binge it?
Probably not. I don't think I don't watch my work. I think even if I make a YouTube video, I watch it as I make it. But then after publishing, I don't think I've ever watched my video in full, especially long ones. So yeah, after you're done with it, you've seen this so many times.
It's like any filmmaker, any artist, right? You spend ages on something. I think the last thing you want to do, right, is probably watch it or look at it.
Maybe like years later to see where you were in the moment. But I think you're discussing something different where you're not actually making it, right?
Yeah, nice little segue into Amazon backing Showrunner. Showrunner, the new platform where you, the audience member, could make your own show, as many seasons, put yourself in the characters and do the setting and location yourself. Everything done by you. We saw this, you and I had a flashback the other day. We saw this about 12, 18 months ago-ish when we were working together. And it was very much in alpha phase. But for those who don't know, Showrunner is the Amazon-backed company where essentially you can create your own animated series in any style you want. Upload a picture of yourself, it animates you, take a picture of the background, it will animate the background, and you can essentially, using AI, make your own stories in a cartoon. Would you do it, Mick? Do you think there's a point? I personally think no, but I'd be interested to see what you think.
Well, I think there is something to it. So there is something to the books that are like choose your own adventure. And I think Netflix made that show before. What is it called? Bandersnatch or something?
Bandersnatch, yeah, from Black Mirror.
Yeah, where you could have chosen where to go. I never got through even like the first 1/3 of it, I don't think, because I just found it annoying because I was like, oh, I want to see the other choice, but I'm already past that choice. And it is very different to playing a game. Like in a game, you're kind of choosing your own story and you're kind of making your own choices, what the character does. And it feels like you're very involved. Whereas in a movie, you're just seeing somebody else's version. And I think everything in between is just not good enough, if that makes sense. So, and I also don't know if, for example, if I specify what happens in the next episode, I already know what happens, so where is the intrigue? You know, you want to watch something so that you want to be surprised. Like the whole thing about Breaking Bad was these moments where like, oh, or Game of Thrones, right? Where they kill off a character and you're like, oh no, they killed off one of the main characters. What? And if I prompt it, like, I wouldn't have that reaction because I know what's going to happen. So I just don't know how this could be as engaging as just being surprised.
Do you think this is more of a fad or this is an actual use case for them to try and find the next showrunner, the next idea, the next like Rick and Morty type story? What do you think?
I think if this could be crowdsourced, kind of like Twitch plays Pokemon, where you have multiple people voting on what happens next, then maybe. But still, yeah, if you kill the intrigue, then I don't think people would watch this. I don't know what the purpose of it is. I think it's a solution in search of a problem. Is that just another AI thing that we can do this, but why? And this kind of reminds me of when shows used to be released on a weekly basis. You would wait for a season and the season would start and people would talk about the shows, right? Every Friday you would watch the show and then on Monday you would talk about this with people at work. You would message your family. They would be like, oh, what's happening next week? And people would live week to week to actually see the show unfold. Whereas then we had those binge shows where Netflix would release 8 episodes of something one day and you would watch it on Saturday. And then you'd feel like you just had McDonald's, right? Because you watched this, but there's no fucking way you remember anything about that show. Like, if you think about it, I think Tarantino has this great segment from Joe Rogan where he was talking about how if you watch a great Western movie, like a 2-hour self-contained movie, then you just remember it. There's something about it. Whereas if you watch Yellowstone, which is like 5 seasons of a show.
Yeah, I got through that. It took me a while.
But do you remember any specific details and storylines? Not really, because it's just so long and so drawn out, right? Like there are maybe specific moments that you remember, but you don't remember the details of who was the villain in season 2, for example, right? Like it takes a long time. And that was Tarantino's point, but I'm going a little bit on a tangent to bring it back to now we're coming back to releases that last for weeks on end. There are 2 reasons for that. 1, it keeps people subscribed for longer, but 2, it makes a show more culturally relevant again. Like Severance, people would discuss what is Cold Harbor for weeks on end. People would speculate on Reddit, on different forums. If you can just create a show on your own and just consume it on your own, and you know what's going to happen, you're creating in your own head. It might be fun if you're 3. You know, like when my son is 2.5 and he makes up his own world, that's fun. Maybe for people who do like Dungeons and Dragons, but still, no, you have somebody else driving the story. It's not you driving the story. You want to be taken for a ride, not you kind of like leading the ride, because then you would be playing a game. I don't know. I just don't see this. I don't see the application. But what do you think?
I just think it's another. You said it perfectly. Look what AI can do. You know, I think that's exactly what's gone on here. It's if it was a real crowdsourcing like opportunity, it's actually kind of evil when you think about it. Like, just hear me out for a second, all right? Amazon released this new platform where you, the viewer, can make your own content and you have to pay for it. So you're paying to use a platform. And I bet you somewhere in the terms and conditions or somewhere within the rights of usage, there's a teeny tiny little line that says Amazon has the rights to use, claim, or use inspiration off this. So it's kind of like it's content farming and they're paying you. Okay, that's the very cynic, sci-fi dystopian kind of narrative I picked out there. But like, again, I don't want to create something and watch it myself. You said it right. Like I just don't see the use case professionally for a corporate company like Amazon to be like, okay, this is a good investment and why. They've probably got something grander in the schemes. Perhaps, if it goes down this alleyway where it's like, okay, we've just bought the IP for Rick and Morty. You can now put yourself in a Rick and Morty world, Maybe that's a route they're going down. But I think you're right. It's the Dungeons and Dragons elements. I can write my own story and I can play it out. But at the same time, it doesn't really work if you're in control of what happens. So I don't see the use case at this point. Maybe you and I are missing something. Maybe the overlords at Amazon have a great master plan at bay. But at this current time, I can't particularly see why I would pay. I don't know how much it is. I'm going to go ballpark and say I bet it's one of those like $17.99, Not quite 20, but like, not low enough to be not worth it.
Yeah, I think you have a great idea there, to be honest, where if there is a existing IP that you can put yourself in, and then you don't control the story itself, it still controls what happens to your character, then maybe, but other than that, I really struggle to find a use case for it.
I think it's the next big AI fad.
DreamWorks, at the end of one of their recent movies, they put a disclaimer, maybe, a line at the end of the credits that basically says, all rights in this work are reserved for purposes of laws in all jurisdictions pertaining to data mining or AI training, including to blah, blah, blah. This work may not be used to train AI. Ooh. And people are cheering for it, which, again, great. If you want to cheer for that, that's great. If you want to protect your work, you should be able to. I just don't know how enforceable that is. Isn't this an equivalent of putting a sign on your door saying, you cannot take a photograph of this house? And it's like, okay. Like, how are you really going to go after people doing this? There's no way to prove or disprove that any part of your film ends up in the actual AI output unless you specify use this specific IP. So I don't know how enforceable that is, but it is a signal. It is a signal for filmmakers from the studio saying, we do not agree with the current way of training AI. And I think that AI training is unethical. You're right.
We spoke about this briefly, but you said to me in a little pre-chat that it's probably too late, and I agree. But now, when you were talking, it came to me like, Midjourney, make a picture of a 35-year-old man wearing a black cap in the style of a Pixar animation. It will do it, and it's too late, or in the times of a DreamWorks, in the style of Shrek animation, or in whatever other DreamWorks do. But it's how would you stop it now? What is the relevancy of
I think you can moderate that. So I think the thing you can do is you can moderate the outputs. So the outputs should be protected. And I don't think that Midjourney should be generating something with protected copyright without explicit consent, or that work shouldn't really be monetized.
Licenses.
Yeah, licenses, but just buy a license. I think like companies like Midjourney, companies like Runway should just license content and then enable you to produce your own, produce your own show. So there is something to it. You can produce a show for other people using this tool. It's not producing the show for yourself. But going back to the DreamWorks thing, it is too late to prevent any like good training data to go in. Because there's already enough data in these models. It's not really the lack of video that they struggled with. It's how to make the outputs better. So like nobody really cares. But it's a strong signal by a community, by studios that they don't agree with this. They don't agree with the way that things are done. I don't know what their legal recourse really is. They cannot really do anything about it at this point. And it's an industry that's already in turmoil, and it's an industry that tries to protect itself. But I just don't think this is the way to protect itself. This is not going to do anything.
Also, how do you, like you said that really well, like how do you enforce that? Is there, if I give AI a scene from a DreamWorks or any sort of, film that's been quote unquote AI watermarked, how do you do that? Is there now a new level of security we have to add when we do an export of a film? Is it something underlying in the metadata and the code? Is it something within the image itself, like a visual watermark that you and I wouldn't pick up on, or something AI would? So are we now opening a door up to, how do we actually secure this watermark or this protection? Or is it just, like you said, it's writing a big old poster on your front door and it's praying to God there are ethical people in this world?
Yeah. I think it's too hard to enforce. And the one danger that I'm thinking about that you just mentioned is, how do we keep track of that this video has been made by AI? And that's something for deepfakes, that's something for legal reasons. And actually Google, out of all companies, I think it's because they would be targeted by Department of Justice pretty hard if they didn't do something like this, is their VO3 outputs. Every single output has an invisible watermark. So there is a thing that if you put any clip generated by VO3 into Google's platform, they're able to prove that this is AI generated. There's like some kind of invisible watermark that's inside of the pixels that works. And you cannot remove it, and there's no way to identify where that is.
In a world where you now have to protect your work at the end of the credits, what happens when that isn't respected or even told about? Last week I spoke about the Hindi filmmaker whose work was essentially recut by AI, and it was actually re-released last week, funny enough. And the lead actor went and saw it and immediately went obviously straight to Twitter. The re-release of this film with AI altered climax has completely disturbed me. The alternate ending has stripped away the film's very soul, and concerned parties went ahead with it despite my clear objection. This is not a film I committed to 12 years ago. The use of AI to alter films or content is deeply concerning precedent for both art and artists. It threatens the integrity of storytelling, the legacy of cinema. I sincerely hope that the strict regulations are put in place to prevent such practices in the future. So now imagine, we spoke about it last week, but then going to the cinema or streaming it at home to rent or buy, they've made something I have no memory of taking part in. Like, I wasn't physically there. I did not do that ending, yet they have made my body do that, as an actor. That is weird.
I don't know what to say. Like, I think it's weird, and we're going to see how this plays out. I think it's going to play out in courts. Again, from my logical perspective, using somebody's likeness, it's probably unethical, shouldn't be done without their consent. But training on data, training on any other data, and then generating fresh set of 2 million pixels every single frame, I think that's fair use. And that's how we humans just learn from other work as well. We just look at something else and remix and recompose. However, we'll see how it plays out in the legal system. There's too much money to be made right now, and this industry cannot continue the way that it is. I think the AI is going to be there. And this brings me to maybe the quote from James Cameron. He said about the VFX industry that it's not about firing half of the people. It's about completing the same shots in half of the time or less. That's why Netflix has used the shot in Eternauts made by Runway. And that is why a lot of the new movies are going to use AI for visual effects. And people might complain, people might cry about it. Visual effects artists are going to cry about it. But let's be real, visual effects studios have been closing, have been struggling. And there's a famous case of Life of Pi, which got, I think it was an Academy Award for the visual effects. And the studio that did the visual effects went bankrupt. So it's, like, I think it was the same year even, like it was so closely connected. And now if you go to visual effects subreddit, you will see that there is a studio after studio laying off more people. And there's a studio called, Glassworks? There's a studio called Glassworks. Yes, there's a studio called Glassworks that just closed down. Again, a lot of people are really upset on Reddit. By the end of the day, artists do not understand one thing. You're not entitled really to a job. People in film industry have this sense of entitlement that they feel like people owe them jobs and positions in the industry just because they went to film school, just because they learned a skill. And they want to be compensated for that regardless of, the quality of the work. Like, just, there should be jobs. If you look at any other artists, like singers, that's not true for singers. Like, only a few people in the, whole singing environment can actually make big bucks out of singing. And most people, actors, people do it out of passion, right? So if you're a painter, if you are a singer, if you're an actor, if you're any other artist, you understand that you do this out of passion, you do this because you like it, and there's probably not a lot of jobs. There are not a lot of singing jobs. Like, the world doesn't owe you a job, right? Whereas in the film industry, it's like, oh, we are owed this because we are in this profession. It's like, no, like some professions are going to disappear. Some professions were monetized and made into an industry, because filmmaking, is it art or is it an industry first?
That's a whole other podcast episode there we'll have to dive into.
I think it started probably more as an industry than art, right? It was just something, cinema, we can bring people to cinema. We can make money with it. So only when it got democratized, only really when people could shoot something on their own, it became more of an artistic endeavor that people felt like, ooh, we belong here. But anyway, let's not get too grim.
But that's interesting. So I've got one thing to go on that, because Did I ever tell you what my first job in industry was?
I don't think we can say that on a public podcast.
I worked at MPC. Well, back when it was at MPC, moving picture company, which now obviously are retitled to Technicolor. But I worked in a VFX studio for a year. I worked as a runner, getting teas and coffees and documents for people like Ridley Scott.
That is so funny because like you're the last person I would accuse of running anywhere.
I am very fit, thank you very much. Back to my point, I was a runner for a year at MPC, fetching teas and coffee for people like Ridley Scott while they looked at the rendering for The Martian, or even when he actually, fun fact, Ridley Scott had 2 films at MPC. He had Exodus, Gods and Kings, which he hated so much, he just jumped off production in the post and said, I don't care, just finish it, I'm not even interested. And then he would come in one morning, look at a render for that, then look at the Martian rendering, like, Martian, way cooler. Yeah, screw that other film. But anyway, to my point, I used to go through 5 floors of offices, right? These massive ball pens, dark rooms of all these artists hunched over with screens, with their pens, doing frame by frame by frame by frame by frame. And after they do 24 frames, they have a big old meeting. All 20 of them come around in the room, look at this 1 second footage and go, yep, cool, then move on. Which, it's overly saturated. It's now looking back, actually, I thought, this is so cool, this is how it's made. I didn't think if is this the right way of making it, that's what's got me thinking now. So perhaps it will desaturate the VFX bloated cash machine that it is at the moment. But I'm eager to see what will come up. Will AI VFX studios be a thing next? Will VFX artists, will they pivot and go, okay, cool, we know the basis, let's make our own model, let's make our own structure? Because right now you've got VO3, you've got Runway, you've got these huge companies that are like spanning video as a long plane of all these assets, where you get one VFX group go, we're going to focus on the AI model solely for VFX. So will that come in the future? Who knows?
I think, unfortunately, VFX artists as a whole are not entrepreneurial enough to do that. Unfortunately,
shots fired.
Yeah, there are, but people who are in the industry, who are workers in the industry, are usually workers in the industry. Like, they are not the people to go out and raise $6 billion to train a new model. And the new models are released mostly by companies that have access to enormous amount of data. And one of the brilliant examples, 2 examples. One, VO3 by Google. Why is it so good at talking and having people talk and doing street interviews and doing content that's eerily like YouTube content? Oh, wait, it's because they own YouTube. So they trained a model on all of the billions and billions of hours of footage of YouTube people talking, right? But then there's another company that released a model that's incredible at lip syncing. And do you know what social platform they own? What other social platform would have tons of lip syncing content?
TikTok.
Exactly. ByteDance, who owns TikToks, their AI models are incredible, and their model is called C-Dance. And they have a video generation model, and now they have a lip syncing model, which is state of the art. It's really, really good. But if you think about the platform, they would have access to, imagine, there's a song, we know exactly what it sounds like, we know exactly the words in it, and now we have 10,000 videos of people lip syncing to that song, right? So now you have 10,000 people with their facial expressions, different race, gender, camera, lighting, doing the lip sync to that exact same song. So you can teach the model. And these models are just going to get better. I don't know, for example, if Netflix is going to just strike a deal. I think they're going to just strike a deal with Runway or one of these model providers. They will not develop it. And it also makes it easier because you have a fall guy. Like, imagine if Netflix owned a model and they produced a show, they get sued to oblivion and they have to pay out like $1 billion fine. Whereas if they contract a production company that has a deal with Runway and Netflix releases the show, somebody has an objection to how the show used AI and they use my content, Netflix can go, actually, that's not us, that's the production company. And the production company goes, well, actually, that's not us, that's the model provider there. And you have to go through this chain of command, and then you end up with a model that's hosted in China. There's no fucking way to ever get like the weights to it. So I think this is not going to, I think it's just going to be a lot of deals here.
That's kind of depressing.
Maybe it is, but at the end of the day, like I said, we get to do this. If you're a filmmaker, you get to make movies, because the alternative for a lot of people, as we know, is, I don't know, waiting tables. Because a lot of struggling actors, a lot of people in the who are in the industry, a lot of actors are people who acted in the background of 3 shows, but the last 7 years of their life, they've been waiting tables. So their main job is actually being a waiter, not an actor, right? I don't know, like this is getting too deep into this industry as a whole. But my final point, bringing it back, is the VFX industry going to be replaced? Yes. And do people owe VFX artists jobs? No. And is it unethical to train the model on somebody else's work?
Yes.
It's a gray area. Yes, probably to an extent, but we can discuss this as well. There are like so many incredibly unethical and just depressing things when it comes to training AI models. For example, Anthropic, who make Claude, they destroyed like hundreds of thousands of books. They just bought them and then destroyed them after scanning them. So there are multiple stories about that. It's
Also,
like a wasteful industry.
Was it you that told me how Midjourney or AI was trained on the female figure and face? Was that correct? When you told me that for like years ago?
Yeah.
That it was made by Paul, because that is the most readily available images of women on the internet.
Yes. So this is something that's very, very hard to prove, but there are certain outputs. I'm not going to go into detail, but there are certain outputs that you can get from video that look eerily like shots that you would associate with adult
How would
content.
you know? How would you know, Mick? You're a married man.
I've been told by people. I just read analysis of that. I've never seen any of this. But as some models have very specific female faces that you can recognize by, like, example, the dimple in the chin, the way that they're smoothed out, and some movements, again, some anatomy can be derived from adult content, because let's be honest, you cannot really have good anatomy of a person if you've never seen that content, if that makes sense, right? So let's put it this way. Midjourney and these image generators need to be censored when they identify the output that violates the policies. So you put in the prompt that you want something that's, a little bit less clothing than ideal, and it generates that image, but then on
their side,
moderation,
shit, no, this breaks our guidelines.
Oh, it breaks the policy, so we're not going to show it to you. So this is also a thing that maybe then avoids copyright, right? Because somebody would have to sue them. Hey, you've used this. You used my video.
Oh, so you do have one. I thought I saw it. It was, of course, that's when you were making Vines. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Did you get the joke? Did you get a joke? Because Vines are only 7 seconds long.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks. It. I'm not. Nice. Yeah, nice.
Well, Vine was great storytelling structure when it first came out, but you had something about storytelling in itself. Tell me not.
People are tired of modern films and of remakes, and superhero fatigue, for example, is a perfect example of that. But I don't know if people are tired of the IP itself, or if they're tired of a movie that's super predictable. Because we know how to make a film with certain beats, with certain acts, with certain structure, that the filmmaking has become very formulaic. And you can see the hero's journey, you can see, I cannot think of another one right now, like the three-act structure, hero's journey, most of this Save the Cat.
Rebirth, journey, the adventure. Oh god, I literally I wrote a thing about this years ago. How do I not remember it?
That's how it proves how useless film school is.
No, hold on. Here we go. Okay, cool. We have Overcoming the Monster, Rags to Riches, The Quest, Voyage and Return, Comedy, Tragedy, and Rebirth.
And this could be applied to storytelling in books, in movies, everywhere, right? And for a story to actually be good, it needs to follow certain structure, right? So my question right now is, do we see any original content? And where does the original content come from? If the industry is becoming more risk averse because there's less and less money, and that's why we see only it's Jurassic World, 7 right now, Fast and Furious 11, Star Wars 9, then another trilogy coming in. Like, are there no new ideas? Like, it's so funny when I watch something with my wife. She watches so many shows. She can guess what's going to happen. She just goes, oh, this guy's going to die.
Yeah.
Like episode 1, and then episode 7, that person dies. I'm like, what? How did you know that? It's like, oh, that always happens in these shows. And I wonder, how do we come up now with something original? The most original content that I see is on YouTube, is on TikTok, is on short form. I haven't seen Hollywood embracing really new, original, unpredictable ideas. And where do you think we can find new ideas, new storytelling, or are we still confined to just these couple of structures that worked in history?
It's a weird thing, isn't it? So the reason this is really good because I read a book about this, and I think you're reading at the moment as well, Into the Woods, the book about storytelling. And there was a part of that where he asked his 5-year-old nephew, can you tell me a story? And the nephew said, once upon a time, there was a boy and girl. They found a pot of gold. The pot of gold was taken from them. They went to go retrieve the pot of gold from a bad person. They got the pot of gold, and now their family lived happily ever after. That 5-year-old child who has no knowledge of storytelling structure just did the perfect kind of like 3-act structure, 5-act structure, really going to blend it out into storytelling. And it begged the question, are our brains hardwired because as human beings, we like stories with catharsis? There's some level of catharsis. Whereas things like Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad to an extent were the first to go, actually, no, we're not going to give you that happy ending you wanted. And we were all like, oh my God, can you believe it? We're not getting what we want. And that was successful. But that works for a period of time before the audience wises up, and you get shows trying to do that on purpose. So back to your question, I think, and it's sad it is, it's like, you could always come up with an idea and you could then say to me, well, Dimmy, isn't that actually this idea blend with that idea? So is there any original ideas? Because we've told stories now for thousands of years. You know, the Bible is the oldest story ever told. I tried to read the Bible one day. I skipped to the ending and ruined it. It was, oh God, bad idea by me. I think it's less about what's original now. I think no matter what you make, it's going to follow some sort of structure we know, but I think it's the context of that story. Severance is a great example. You know, that was a story about going to work. That's not an average story that you'd actually flesh out into a dramatic series. So I think it's now finding these elements in life that haven't had stories told about them and still applying one of these 7 storylines. I think that's where it comes. It's not the structure of the story, it's the context of the story is told. Sex education, Fleabag, you know, things that you're like, these are quite left field ideas. But that's why I think it comes into.
I think that 5-year-old example is already seen stories, films, read books. So it's already, the idea is planted. I wonder if, like, a baby cannot really tell an interesting story, let's be honest. When you have a 2-year-old try to tell you a story, and this is a perfect example from the South Park creators, when they talk about storytelling, they say, and that is true with my child as well, when you ask him, like, oh, what happened today? He goes, I was walking, and then I looked to the right, and then there was a pigeon, and then I tripped, and then the pigeon flew away, and that makes the story really monotonous, and you listen to it because you love your child, but when is it gonna end? But there's another end, then, and then, and then. But there's no suspense, there's no peaks and valleys. And that's where the South Park creators, that's one of the best storytellers in the world.
Well, they just signed a $1.1 billion deal with Paramount, didn't they?
Yeah, they're gonna make like $1.5 billion, and they win either way. But regardless, they said this thing about constructing your story with but, therefore. And that makes every story already 10 times better, because you can say, I was walking down the street and it was sun shining, but suddenly a car hit me. So I had to go to the hospital, but I couldn't get there because there was traffic. So I did, and this makes the story, there's always a push and pull, there's conflict, there's something happening. And I think you need to learn that to be a good storyteller. And whether you learn that formally through school, through any certification courses, whatever, or you are just surrounded by great storytellers and by osmosis, you just learn how to tell good stories. Are we as humans capable still of being original ourselves, or everything, like you said, can be kind of brought down to, oh, this is a derivative of an existing story. Oh, this is just a remix of that structure. And then we apply that same lens, we apply a double standard really to AI, because we can say, oh, this AI generated script is just a rehash of ABC. But I'm like, yeah, but we can do that with human scripts as well. So are we really as original as we think we are? Or can everything be brought back to formulaic storytelling?
I think so. My brain was going towards. I've been watching a lot of Gothic films recently, and I watched The Picture of Dorian Gray. So I started thinking about Oscar Wilde, and I started thinking about when he wrote that in his time. That must have been, oh my god, it's such an original idea. The Picture of Dorian Gray, the concept. Now, do you think it was a case of storytelling was this untouched bit of language, this untouched form that, you get the greatest ideas happened in the 1800s, 1700s, Alexander Dumas, who was the Three Musketeers, the Count of Monte Cristo, that was written in a time where, storytelling was growing. So my sad thought is, have we reached like the capacity of stories to be told? In the 1700s, was that at 50%? In the 19th century, was it at 75%? Now, in the 21st century, have we used our capacity of stories to be told? Have we had so many storytellers that we don't have a new original idea? So that's what I think is, over time, that's how we've been led to this point where we don't think there's an original story to be told, because our brains literally can't fathom or think of it. Right now, could you think of an original story? Like something that breaks every boundary, that breaks the 7 storylines? Is it because we've been conditioned over our entire lives and what we've seen that we have no idea what original may look like? It's this thing. So now, are we living in a world where this isn't an original idea, but the form of it, Uncut Gems, that is a tragedy and a comedy with Adam Sandler and the Sadafi brothers, but yet it was hailed as this cinematic masterpiece. But is it the form of which it took? A sleazy New York jewelry owner, which is, nothing you'd see every day. So that was a lot of thoughts in one. So are we tapped out original stories, and are we just changing the form to be original?
So I'm going to throw a curveball here. I think because of what you said and because of what we're kind of alluding to right now, which is humans have produced so many stories that right now there is a 99.9% chance that whatever you produce can be brought back to something that's been done in the past, right?
Simpsons did it. Like, no, the South Park quote.
Thus
Like, yeah.
making it unoriginal, right? As a human being, it would be too hard for you to make a story and keep checking whether every beat of the story has never been done before. But it's not a problem for AI, because if AI can know basically all the stories that have been told before, it can mathematically and algorithmically arrive at something where you say, produce a story that at no point can be traced back to something else. And for a human mind, this is just too complex. This is too big of a task.
We're biased in our heads, you know.
Whereas AI could produce a story, evaluate the script, and be like, okay, I found references here, 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 here. Let's change. I found references here, here, here. And then, by exclusion, it's going to arrive at a completely original idea that has never been done before. A human being cannot do it. So maybe our solution to producing new original storytelling is, and this is going to be blasphemy, AI.
Then what happens to writers?
Who gives a
I have our weekly. Is it AI or is it real?
Bring it on, bring it on.
So
I'm an expert at this.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do this one. Kablamo! Which of these images are AI? Which of them are from the source?
Okay, so I can tell you straight away that Loki and Star Wars Rey are AI because of the dimples in the chins.
He's got a playbook, ladies and gentlemen. He's got a playbook.
Yeah. Then Frozen could be from a film because it's an animation, so I couldn't really tell. There's no way to tell. There might be a frame in the film. Brave, same. No, Brave is from the film. I think it would be very, very impressive if Brave was AI because of that small shadow that takes into account one of the curls casting a shadow on her cheek. If that's AI, then CGI artistry is dead. And then I don't know about the Final Fantasy part. That might be from the game. Again, it's 3D generated, so I don't know. And Spider-Man, it's AI.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. VFX artist is dead. All these images are Midjourney V6.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So I got duped here.
Yeah, sorry, I'm playing dirty now. I've got to shake it up every week. But yeah, Brave, I mean, you're totally right. The shadow. Loki and Rey's giveaway. The waxiness of Spider-Man. Final Fantasy is unfair because that is a game. You have no chance of hell in there. But I think this kind of proved our point from the beginning, how we started this podcast with our VFX artists. Look what AI has done.
And that's just Midjourney. I don't want to be like demeaning, but like Midjourney is far from the frontier. Midjourney
It used to be.
It used to be,
anymore.
but like V6 is old news at this point. There's a V7, and V7 is not even state of the art. So we're getting to a place, like I said, show this to a normal person and ask them, and they will not be able to tell. You know, I'm not a normal person because I look too much at AI stuff.
And the topic for next time is now kids growing up in the age of AI content. Your kid, will you be able to tell the difference growing up or not? Who knows? Tune in next week to find out more.
Yeah, I really don't want to show him AI stuff. And I don't know why. Like, there's just something about AI content that's good for... I don't know, it's good for adults maybe when you can tell the difference, but I don't think it's good for a developing mind, especially at that young age. But maybe he watches animations, I don't know. I would need to ponder about this a little bit more. But right now, my first instinct is that I want him to see what real people look like, what real world looks like. Yeah, all right. Good episode. Thanks, Zim. And see you in the next one.
Ciao for now.